Congratulations, you got the xTool F1. Now you want to learn more about getting started and XCS. This is the video for you. We hope that this longer video will be a good resource for you to come back to in the future when you get stuck. Let's get started. Before we begin with XCS, we want to go over some common things that users run into when they try to power up their F1 for the first time. The most common is that they have the emergency stop button engaged on the left side of the F1. Simply turn this clockwise and it will disengage. Second is they have a missing USB key, so look in the back of your F1 and there is a spot to plug in the key. If you don't have one in there, check your packaging or check with support. Finally, on the right side of the F1, there is a knob that is used to start your engraving, but it is also used to focus the laser. Turning it to the right will raise it up and to the left will lower it. You should see two lasers on your material. If you only have one laser spot, make sure that you remove the lens cap located here and you should be good to go. Now that we have the tricky bits out of the way, let's move to XCS on our computer. There are a lot of things to cover, so we will go over all the features and sections, starting with the left side menu. Image. This will allow you to import your designs right from the computer, either SVG, PNG, or JPEG images. We will go over the difference at a later point of this video. Insert. With Insert, you can draw three common shapes: a line, a rectangle, and a circle. Shape. This section gives us a few more options for different designs. Whether it is more basic shapes, borders, plants, or animals, you can find them here. It is really nice that xTool included some of these for basic projects. Text. Text is something that we use very often in our day-to-day engravings. It allows us to quickly personalize a tumbler, coaster, and more right from within XCS. Here we can use the text box to type out xTool. From there, we can either use the resizing option on the work area or set the size under the text options to make our words larger or smaller. Typeface allows you to change the font, while Style will set the font to either light, regular, bold, and more, depending on what is available with that specific one. Spacing will allow you to adjust the distance between letters, while Leading will adjust distance between lines. We will add another line to demonstrate. Align options are left, center, and right. Finally, for the text menu, we have Weld. This is useful for cursive fonts. So to demonstrate, we will switch to the dancing script font. Now you can see that there are parts of the letters which are overlapping each other, and we need to combine them. Once we click Weld, those overlaps are removed. This will produce a better result when scoring, engraving, and cutting. Another cool feature in XCS is making your text go around designs. Let's type out the word hello. You can see this icon appear next to the text. Clicking and dragging this icon up or down will adjust the radius of your text. This is great for things like ornaments and coasters. Let's continue down the menu with Vector. Vector allows you to draw out some basic shapes by connecting line segments together. xArt. xArt is a really cool feature in XCS that allows you to quickly generate images for your projects using a prompt. We will use this example prompt. From there, you can select a style that you want it to generate and how many images to generate at once. Keep in mind that generating images will use up points, and xTool has options on how to earn more for free. Once you click Generate, you will get some images that can be added directly into your project. Code. This lets you quickly generate QR or barcodes that you can engrave. This is really handy for things like business cards. Select and Hand. Select will allow you to move your designs while the Hand tool will move your work area. Next, we move on to the top menu, Settings. First on the list are Settings. Here you have some basic preferences that you can select for XCS. But the most commonly used by us is simply changing the unit of measurement, either between millimeters and inches. Another important part of settings is located at the bottom. If you scroll down, you will see a Check for Updates button. This makes sure that you are on the latest and greatest version of XCS. Folder. Tapping on the folder icon allows you to start a new project, open an existing project, save as, and also export your current design as an SVG file. Cloud projects. This is a relatively new feature by xTool, but it allows you to save 10 projects free of charge to the cloud, meaning that you can access them at any time without needing to find the files on your computer. xTool projects. If you ever get stuck and need some inspiration, xTool projects is a great source for how-tos and free project files. There are a ton to choose from and many more that are uploaded daily by xTool and other users. Announcements, help, shop, and account. These last four are self-explanatory and are quick links to help you get more information. Layers. If you have multiple elements of your design, you can use layers to help keep them organized and allow for quicker selections. Here, we have added a heart and the word love. If we select the heart, we can move it into a new layer by right-clicking it and selecting another color just like that. This way, you can easily select the red layer and set it to cut, while engraving the black layer. Bottom bar. Right below your work area, you will see the default canvas 1. From here, you can add more canvases or rename existing ones to keep multiple parts of your project organized. Moving on to the design tools. Undo and redo. Starting off simple, undo and redo allows you to do just that when you make a mistake or don't like how a new change looks. Outline. The outline tool works in a few different scenarios. We really like this tool for making keychains. We will start by typing out a word, then clicking outline. This gives us the option to increase the size of the outline to give more padding around the word to create this nice and quick design. Array. This is a very powerful tool and can help a lot when working with new material. There are a lot of details involved with using Array, and if you guys would like to see a more in-depth video on how you can use this option to create your own test grids, leave a comment below. Group and Ungroup. If you have multiple parts to your project and want to make sure that nothing is moved out of place, grouping them is a great option. Simply highlight all the elements in the workspace and click Group. This will bundle it all together so you can move your parts as one. In the case that you need to make any adjustments, click Ungroup. Align. Have one or more elements that you need to center to one another or distribute equally, the Align tool takes all the guesswork out. Let's quickly run through the options. Start by selecting all elements. Align left. Horizontal align center. Align right. Align top. Vertical align center. Align bottom. Equal distribution. Distribute horizontally. Distribute vertically. Arrange. Sometimes a larger element might be on top of a smaller element and will prevent you from seeing it. Arrange allows you to organize the multiple parts to make editing easier. Combine. This is another powerful feature in XCS. Let's run through the different use cases here. Unite. Similar to welding text together, Unite allows us to combine our designs together into a single design. As an example, this allows us to quickly build shapes that can be used as keychains. We will add a circle to our workspace and then another smaller circle right above it. Now, if we click Unite, XCS will make it into one shape. Subtract. This will allow you to cut away parts of your designs. Think of this as a cookie cutter that can be shaped like anything that you want. With our keychain, we need to have a hole for the ring to go through. By adding a third smaller circle here, we can click the Subtract button and make a hole in our design. Unite at overlap. This will only keep the parts of your shapes that are overlapping. Subtract at overlap. This will remove any parts of your shapes that are overlapping. Reflect. If you need to mirror a design vertically or horizontally, that can be done using the Reflect tool. Position, size, and rotate. Position uses X and Y coordinates that represent your workable area. Size allows you to more precisely make adjustments to your designs while keeping the ratio the same, so as height goes up, so does width. In the case where you may want to stretch out a design, you can simply unlock this icon. Rotate also allows you to more precisely control the orientation of your design by using degrees relative to its current orientation. Corner radius. Finally, for this section, we have the corner radius in the case that you may need to add some rounded corners to your rectangles and squares, like so. Machine section. In the top right corner of XCS, you will see an image of your machine. In our case, we have the xTool F1. From here, you can learn more about the machine with a quick link to some help documentation. You can also find your machine's settings. The basic info section allows you to change your machine's name and check for firmware version. The settings section has a few very nice features, but two of our most used ones are buzzer reminders and infrared ray preheat. We typically have buzzer reminders disabled to stop the beeping when you turn on the machine, start an engraving, or when one is complete. In some cases, if the F1 is in a colder room or garage, enabling infrared ray preheat will produce better results, because there is an ideal temperature at which the IR laser works best, and this will make sure it's up to temp before starting the engraving or cutting process. However, keep in mind that this doesn't always stay on, and restarting XCS will disable this feature. File types. XCS will accept two forms of files and handles the settings differently. First and most common are vectors, which have the file extension of SVG. SVGs are great for simpler designs like this, what you normally see engraved on tumblers, business cards, and jewelry. The other form of files are bitmaps with the file extensions of PNG or JPEG. Bitmaps contain much more detail, such as family, pet, or landscape photos. Bitmap settings. Now let's go over the settings for these file types. Like we mentioned before, XCS processes these files differently, and we will begin with bitmap settings. Here we have an image of our cat, Checo. Let's go over some of the basic settings to engrave this. We will actually start at the bottom of this right side menu and change the bitmap mode from grayscale to Jarvis. This simplifies the settings by removing the need for power range, which will make it a bit easier for new beginners. Okay, great. Now that we are on Jarvis, we need to decide what laser type to use. Good rule of thumb is that the IR laser is used on metals, stones, and plastics. The blue light is for everything else. Dot duration is the amount of time the laser spends in a single spot. Higher dot duration on materials that get lighter when engraving will produce a brighter image, while things like wood that get darker when engraving will produce a darker image. Then we have power and DPI. DPI stand for dots per inch and is essentially the resolution of the image. Similar to dot duration, increasing or decreasing, this will also lighten or darken your engraving depending on what material you are working with. Passes allow you to do multiple passes without having to manually start the laser again. Bitmap mode has a lot of different options, but you can find one that works best for you. Like we mentioned earlier, we find that Jarvis can be easier to learn. When looking at the F1 while it is engraving, wearing safety glasses of course, you will notice that the laser moves left to right and back again without turning off. That is because bidirectional mode is enabled. If you set this setting to unidirectional, the laser will turn off, reset its position, and turn back on again. Long story short, it's best to just leave this set to bidirectional because it speeds up engravings. If anyone has a use for unidirectional, please let us know in the comments. You will also see these bitmap image settings. Filter lets you quickly change the style of your photo without the need to use another editing software, and there are 7 filters to choose from. Increasing sharpness may help your image pop a bit more with cleaner edges. Grayscale helps you set how dark the darkest parts are and how light the lightest parts are of your image by moving the sliders. Invert is also another very important setting. Basically, if you are engraving on a light material, you can leave this off, but for any other darker material, you want this on or you will have an X-ray look. Edit Image will allow you to do some basic cropping and adjusting. Trace Image can be very useful if you have a simple logo only in a bitmap format and would like to convert it to a vector. We will go over that in a minute, but first there is one more bitmap setting that has recently been added. Masking. Let's say you have a rectangular bitmap image like we have here, but want to engrave it on a round ornament. This can be easily done by inserting a circle, resizing, and positioning it over your image. Then select both your shape and your image, right-click, and select Make Clipping Mask. Make any final adjustments, and when you click Done, your image will be that new shape. If at any time you need to adjust this shape, you can right-click on the image again and select Edit Clipping Mask. You can also release clipping masks if you want to change the shape to something else. Okay, now we will move over to vector files. You can import SVG files directly from your computer, or we will quickly run through how to change a bitmap to a vector if you don't have access to SVG design software or files. Clicking on this icon, we can see that it shows up with the normal bitmap settings. If we click on Trace, this will draw paths around your main shapes. This typically works better with simpler logos and words. The default settings work great, and now we can click Save. This will add it to a new layer, and if we move it off to the side, we can see that each part of the design is now also separate. Clicking Ungroup will allow us to make changes, like adjusting spacing or removing parts of the design altogether. When we are happy with the design, we can remove the original image. A trick that we have also learned that helps speed up engraving is to select all parts of your design, click Combine, and then Unite. This will make the F1 engrave your design top to bottom, instead of each individual part one by one. Using vectors opens up the door to two new processing types, scoring and cutting. Scoring will produce an outline of your design, and has laser type, power, speed, and passes as options. You can think of cutting as scoring, but at a much slower speed, to give the laser enough time to go through the entire thickness of your material. You will also notice that only the blue light laser is available for cutting, and that the max speed you can go to is 20 millimeters per second. This means that you will need to reduce power in some cases to cut thinner material, like paper. Engrave has the same settings as cut and score, with the addition of lines per centimeter. This, like DPI for bitmap, is essentially the resolution of your engraving. A higher number will produce cleaner lines, but will also increase the duration of your engrave. Typically, if you are working on large designs, this number can be reduced, but for smaller engravings such as jewelry, you would want to keep this number around 300 to get the best result. Another setting here is Output and Ignore. This simply means that you can ignore any designs on your work area that you do not want your laser to engrave. If you ever run into an issue with engraving something, deselect your design, and you will see a material option pop up on the right side of XCS. This will give you a few things to choose from and can take some of the guesswork out of the settings, or at least give you a starting point. Here you will also see a few other options. Thickness allows you to set the focus from your computer, but this means that you need to know the exact thickness of your material. We find that using the knob on the side of the F1 to be a bit quicker. Processing path is set to auto by default. This means that if you have multiple layers, XCS will decide on its own the order to engrave in. Switching this to by layer will go down your layers starting from the top of the layer panel. If you have seen any of our Tumblr videos, you know that we typically like doing two passes, first with the blue light laser and the second with the IR to clean up the metal. Processing by layer helps us do it in that order. Finally, in this section, we can also switch over to the laser cylindrical option, and we will go over this quickly if you have also purchased the rotary tool. But we have a few videos on our channel on how to use the rotary if you need more details. The main thing that we have seen confusion on here is in the mode section. The RA2 Pro comes with rollers or a chuck. For rollers, you need to properly space them apart, depending on how big the item is that you are engraving. Also, the rollers are not ideal if you are doing 2 passes. With the chuck, you need to measure the distance around the item or the diameter. By default, the measurement is in millimeters, which is something to keep in mind because sometimes the tape measures that you use may only have centimeters, so you will need to convert that and enter it here. That brings us to the end of this video. We really hope this helps you get more familiar with XCS. Let us know what you thought, or if there is anything else you would like us to cover. Comment below, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and stay creative.